Sunrise Walks with Willow. Today, I'd like to ramble on a little bit. So, follow me with this thought and then let me know how you feel about it. So, I'm listening to this podcast with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and he's talking about the fact that we have more of a connection to our past than we do to our future, which is why we recreate our future from our past experiences. And they're saying that science is proving this, psychology is proving this. All right. And then what they go on to say is that our brains are not evolved enough to think that far into the future. So we're talking about the brain of like 100, 200 years ago, the reptilian brain, which I think doctors and medical people is the correct term for it. And in the podcast, they talk about the fact that our brains have not evolved sufficiently for us to think 5-10 years into the future, which is why we can't, which is why we create our future based on our past, because we have a disconnect to our future, because our ancestors only had to think about the food and the shelter for the following week. And the fact that they only lived to like 20, maybe 45, maybe 40 years old, whereas now our lifespan is 80 to 100. So the idea in your 20s of having to plan for a retirement at 65 is just inconceivable. There is also the other talk about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, which doctors and scientists and stuff are saying is separate, and they say the subconscious mind lives in your body. The Swamis of India talk about the subconscious and the conscious mind being the same thing, and we as human beings have separated it. So, and I've told my clients before as well that the reason their life is like it is, it's not really their fault. It's because of this system in your brain. You have a psychocybernetic, which is like an autopilot in an airplane, which brings you, it's like an autocorrect. So when you want to change, it's like you're going off course. So your psychocybernetic brings you back on course, which is what it's used to, what's familiar with. We also have a reticular activating system, and that is the filter that decides what gets filtered through from your subconscious to your conscious brain, and you give it that instruction. Which is why when you focus on something like, and I always use the example of the Ford Everest because I love a Ford Everest. So I have given my Raz permission to allow any Ford Everest that crosses my path to, pretty sure, for me to notice it, because it's then part of my conscious mind, right? And I'm asking the question, like, is that really true this morning? Because I don't know that I agree that it is true. It almost feels like it's a bit of a cop-out, and it's a bit of a, well, it's not really my fault, it's my brain's fault that my life is so terrible. But I keep doing the same things and I keep getting the same answers, and my life doesn't change. So what if I just keep doing something different on a daily basis? I will then get something different. I mean, I come from a family that don't write. They barely read. My mother used to read for a while, but hasn't for a very long time. And I've had this inane desire from childhood, this almost obsession with books, and this desire to write. And he does quote Denzel Washington in his book, The Future, Be Your Future Self Now, where Denzel Washington says that if that desire exists, that desire was given to you by God. You can call it source, you can call it universe, whatever makes you feel comfortable, but it's a higher power. So the desire was given to you by God, and that means that it's already yours. So then what you have to do is believe that and make it real. Food for thought on a Friday. Rambles with Willow. Have a beautiful weekend.